I will now do a skin tapered blowout with an 8 guard all over. I will first start off by using my wall seniors and an 8 guard with a closed lever. I will cut all around against and with the grain and making sure I evenly and consistently cut all the hair. It's also important as you cut, you comb or brush the hair and making sure you don't leave any hair uncut. I will now use my number 4 guard, closed lever, cutting this area right here. Not taking it too high up, as I still want to make sure the sides blend in with my number 4 guard. Notice how around the ears I'm cutting at a 30-degree angle. And I'm also using my clip over comb technique. I will now use my number 2 guard, open lever, and cut right in this area. Again, you don't want to go too high. You want to make sure as you cut, you're going in an up and down stroke motion and staying underneath the 4 guard. I will now close my lever and continue working right underneath what I just did with my 2 guard open lever. I will now use my T-wide wall heroes and cut right in this area, leaving my edges darker. I will now start off with my wall starting reflections, open up my lever and cut right in this section right here. Notice how I'm only using a couple teeth of the actual blade and my blade at a 30 to 45 degree angle. I will now close my lever and open it up halfway and work right underneath what I just did when cutting with the lever open. I will now place my half guard on, close lever, and cut maybe 1/8 of an inch right above what we did when starting off with only the half open lever. I will now open up my lever all the way, close it, and leave it right in the middle and go up maybe another 1/8 of an inch and continue blending what I just did. I will now open up my lever all the way and continue blending right above what we just did. I will now take my 1.5 guard, close the lever, open it, and cut in this area. Again, making sure I stay underneath what we did initially with the 2 guard. I will now close my lever, still with the 1.5 guard, and cut in that area. I will now take my 1 guard by wall, open lever, and cut right underneath what we just did with that 1.5 guard. I will now close my lever all the way and continue blending right underneath what we just did. I will now take my wall heroes with the T-wide blade and arch out this area. Notice how I'm using the corner of the blade for the arch. I will now do some touch-up work, making sure the blend and the taper is crispy clean. I will now use my wall electric shaver and just touch up right underneath what we did when we went in with the wall heroes to make our initial guideline. You don't want to take this too high, as you may create a brand new guideline, which is what you do not want to do. I will now do all the same steps I did on the first side to the other side. I will now use my foreguard, close lever, and continue cutting in an up and down stroke motion to make sure I start blending in with the 8 guard all over we initially started this haircut with. I will now use my 2 guard, close lever, and continue working right underneath what we did with the 4 guard. I'll use my clip over comb technique to continue blending from the 4 to the 8 and giving it a smoother transition. Always making sure your comb is at a 30 to 45 degree angle. I will now use my wall balding clippers to cut in this area right here, going up about maybe a 1/4 of an inch to an inch, right above where his natural hair growth ends at. I will now use my wall short inflections open lever and cut right in this section right here, in between our initial guideline and the occipital bone. So I'll only be going up maybe about a 1/4 of an inch. Notice how I left my initial guideline in an arch to be able to leave my edges a little darker. I will now close my lever halfway and work right underneath what we just did when going in there with my open lever, making sure I don't take it as high as I did when I initially cut with just the open lever. I will now open up my lever just enough where it's not zero gapped to take out that initial guideline that we created when using the balding clippers. I will now take my number 1 guard, open up the lever all the way, and continue cutting right above what we just did, making sure I take it up right underneath the occipital bone from one side to the other. I will now close my lever all the way and continue working what I just previously did with the open lever. I will now take my half guard, open up the lever, and continue working right underneath what I just did with the 1 guard, making sure I stay consistent and underneath that 1 guard. I will now close my lever all the way and clean up right underneath what we previously did. I will now take my clip over comb technique to make sure I blend the sides in, going from one taper to the other taper on the left side right above the ear. Again, making sure my comb is at a 45 degree angle. I will now trim right behind the ears and making sure I pull down the ear. I will do the same thing on the other side. Pull down the ear and continue edging from behind the ear all the way down to the right side of the neck. I will do some touch-up work and making sure the back taper looks nice and clean. I will now use my number 3 guard, close lever, brush the hair back or comb the hair back, and taper up right in the front to help create the front hairline to look nice and crispy and sharp. I will now take my 5 guard and go against the grain as the hair is being combed back and making sure I blend from my 3 guard to my 8 guard. I will also use my clip over comb technique to make sure what I've tapered in the front blends in smoothly with the 8 on top. Notice how I have my comb at a 45 degree angle and making sure it's a smooth transition from the front to the longer hair in the back. I will now shape up the front hairline using my War Heroes. You always want to make sure you keep the hairline as natural as possible and press gently. I will now use my Pacinos signature red razor to edge up the sides and the hairline. always making sure I stretch out the skin and use my razor at a 45-degree angle with smooth, consistent strokes. I'll also make sure I edge up the back of the neck hairline. I will now apply some gel in the hair and style it with my fingers. Now I will touch up the hairline, making sure it's nice and even. And for your final look, a skin taper blowout with an 8 guard all over.